everybody, this is B again. Welcome to part 3, flattening of a landing strip using Muxp. Last time we installed and configured Muxp, and if you can remember, it was in the custom scenery. There is the Muxp folder with the application and the config file. Okay, just to show you the config file setup again, open up Muxp, click on the config button, and there's the explain base folder. It's a sandbox where I'm doing all my scenery design, and the default folder where everything is happening is a ZZZ Muxp folder. And then I switched on export to KML because we're going to use Google to modify the runway profiles, and activate the pack. That's update the scenery pack.ini. Okay, to continue, I need to build a little airstrip for you. It is in South Africa on the west coast in a town called Port Nolloth, and it's actually a landing strip in a salt pan. There's a salt pan, there's a town, and there's a landing strip. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the profile of that landing strip. Let's call it the landing strip and click on OK. Right now, if I open up the landing strip, I show you the elevation profile. Okay, the lowest point is 8 meters, the average is 10 meters, and the highest point is 30 meters. We work in meters because Muxp and World Editor works in meters. So just to give you an idea, it's going into a dip, and then it's going up a bit uphill, then it's going into another dip, and then it's going out of the salt pan. Alright, let's minimize this. And now I'm going to open up World Editor. It is open. I've already built the airport with some auto images, so that we can have a better perspective of what is happening. So let's open that up and let's zoom out a little bit. Now what you see here is not the auto images. I've switched it off, and yeah, let me delete that. Control S, Control B. Now Control S is for saving, Control B is for exporting to explain. Okay, there's the landing strip from there to there, and let us open explain to see how it looks like with a vanilla explain scenery. So let's start with a new flight. Start flight. Okay, let me maximize that. Now getting out of the aircraft, it's the C button, the period to move forward, the comma to move backwards, the up arrow to go up, the down arrow to go down, and if you press the shift key in any of those buttons, it goes a little bit faster. So okay, let's go forward, and I control right mouse button, there's the dip, my direction and elevation, while holding down the period key. But as you can see, we haven't got any, it's a featureless scenery. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let's go a bit higher up. There's a town. That is default scenery. So okay, let's close down. So I'm going to switch on the auto images. Control S, Control B for exporting it. And let's open up explain again. Okay, resume the last flight. Now something else while it's busy opening up. This is a airport or airstrip that hasn't got the registered ICAO code. It's a registration I gave it to the airport itself because it's a custom-made scenery, and we will talk about it a little bit later on. Okay, let's get into the aircraft. let's maximize. Okay, there is the auto images overlay. It looks a little bit better, and now you can see some features. And again, this is how the runway looks like. In actual fact, it do have a bit of an elevation here. Okay, let's get out of here. Okay, before we continue, I just want to show you how the scenerypacks.ini file looks like. I open up the scenerypacks.ini file, and you will see there's the entry for the Muxp right at the top. Remove that entry, cut it, and paste it to the bottom of that list. I'll show you later why I'm saying this. Okay. Okay, just for comparison, I'm just going to switch on the always flatten. Control S and Control B. Save it and get into the aircraft again, and we see how it looks like with a big flat square. Resume the last flight. Okay, get out of the aircraft by pressing C with up arrow key, and you will see we've got a large flat area around the airport. Let's go down a little bit, then it's easier to see. There you will see it flatten that all there, up to there, and so on. And this is what we do not want. We really want to create a flattening feature or area just around the runway, or perhaps a salt pan that I'm going to show you right now. Okay, before I continue with the flattening of the runway or the area, the salt pan, I need to tell you something about the Apt.dat file. Okay, in my custom scenery, there is my Apt.dat file. I'm going to use that because Muxp uses this file to get the coordinates where it's going to work from. So I'm going to close this, but if you're looking at the gateway scenery files or scenery files from the gateway, it will be in the global airports, nav data, and the Apt.dat file is there. Now, in the beginning I said, make a copy of your originals, so I already made a copy of the original and I name it .original. Now, when Muxp starts, it will make a copy of that Apt.dat file before it was manipulated. But if you change, say for example, a scenery from the gateway, and the flattening, always flattening was on, it will, in the Apt.dat file, okay, it's opening up now, it will, let's find something, if we are, it will comment out the line about the flattening, and then you can continue. But as I said, you always got an original if you have to revert back to it, but you can go and edit the file yourself. Okay, let's wait for it to open. This is quite a large file, as you can see, 0.3 gigs. Yeah, when you work with Muxp and it finds an airport within this file and it is always flattening was switched on, you will get a message in the Muxp that it's been switched, that it's been commented out. Okay, there's an example. Now what's going to happen if you work on, for example, FAVR? This is going to happen. A comment will be added towards the 1302 flatten one line, and now when you start explain, it will say it's not been flattened, and it will use the new Muxp information that will be in the Muxp folder to draw the new mesh and so on. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm not going to use it. So that's more or less what's happening. When I do the sample in the manual, I will show you it again. Okay, let's close this and let's continue here. Now, before you can flatten an area, you need to have a boundary around the area. Now in this case, I'm going to do it two ways. The first thing is I'm going to add a boundary around the salt pan. If you want to really do it properly, you need to go where the waterline mark is, but I'm not going to in too much detail at the moment. I'm just going to show you more or less how it looks like. Okay, when we get closer to this, let's do this. There's the waterline, and so on. Okay, this one seems to be a bit out. Let's pull it in a little bit. It might be going that route, that way. And to add another vertex, you just hold Control and press the left mouse button, so you can add some more control. You don't want to make it that sharp. Just to show you. Okay. Now I've added the border, a boundary around the airport. Control S and Control B to save it, or to export it to explain. Okay, just before I continue, always flatten is off. Right, let's start Muxp. We open up the folder, close the global scenery, custom scenery, and we go to Muxp. We've already set up the config file, so I'm just going to close that down. And I'm going to run Muxp. It will open up one window, and then there's another window I need to open up, the Create Muxp button, and it'll open up another window. And if you look down on your taskbar, you will see you have two windows. Always make sure that you've got only one session open. Okay, the first thing we need to tell Muxp where is it going to get the Apt.dat file. Now, as you can see, by default, it is a custom scenery global airports earthnav data, the Apt.dat that I made the copy from. But since I'm working in custom scenery, I have to go and select the custom scenery's Apt.dat file, earthnav data, and there it is. Open it up. And we're going to do a flatten of the runway. But if you've got an area with a lot of airports in it, you need to enter the ICAO code. But this airport doesn't have an ICAO code. It has got a custom code I gave it. It's part of a bigger project. So FA is for South Africa and 00 Papa November for Port Nolloth. So, and let's get into Muxp. I open up this one and I open that one as well. So I'm saying flatten. I've got the Port Nolloth Apt.dat file, and now I just press Create Muxp. It will tell me at the bottom if it is completed and it is successful. And if you open up now the folder, there is the Muxp file that the Muxp application is going to use to create the new mesh for you. Right, there's a polygon for the flattening. The elevation is 10 as per airport design, and there is the runway coordinates. Okay, now I'm just gonna stop here for a moment. Let me see. No, let's close it down. Let's continue. I'll show you something now in Google Earth. Right, the next step is I have to go and select that Muxp file. Sorry, I was lost for a moment. There's the Muxp file. I open it up, and now I click on Start Muxp. As I said, You need to have a boundary. If you don't have a boundary, you're going to get an error here. I do have a boundary, and I click on Muxp, start Muxp, and it's creating the scenery. Now it will tell you the scenery package is currently not activated in scenery packs.ini. In order to see the changes by Muxp, this ini file needs to be updated by placing the package in the ini file. By pressing OK, Muxp will activate the update for you. By pressing cancel, you have to activate it on your own. Now, if you have a look here, okay, there it is. I've already got an entry in here, but that entry is in the wrong place. So let's see if I press OK, what's going to happen. Now I click on this, nothing is happening. Okay, you know there's some scenery there. So let's open up the airport. We use this now as is. I've already created now something else. Let me show you quickly here. There is a new DSF with the new mesh. So what's going to happen? The order that's supposed to work, it will pick up the DSF from this and will add the mesh from this DSF. So the original mesh will be overwritten by the DSF that is lying in there. Okay, I said supposed to be. Okay, and there's the Muxp file that you can export with your scenery to your friends or someone else, wherever. And he has to use the Muxp application to reverse this information to create this DSF file. But we'll talk about that later. Okay, let's open up Explain. Okay, there we are, but our scenery are gone. I'm getting out of the aircraft, our scenery are gone. Why is that? It's going to happen with you. That's sort of a promise. So let's close down that. And the issue is in the scenery packs.ini file, because this line needs to lie in the bottom. All the Control X, Control V, all the mesh files needs to be at the bottom of this list. So let's save it and let's open up Explain again. And resume the last flight. It's going to happen today. And there you are. There's the scenery back. Let's get out of the aircraft. And now you will see the salt plan. Okay, let's maximize that. The salt plan is sort of flat. Let's go down a little bit more. There you will see gradual upgrades and so on. And let shift and the period button, and we fly around over the salt pan. We turn back. Oh my goodness. And we go there where I did a bit of extra vertical points. And it does not look too bad. The runway is now completely flat. The whole area is flat. Okay, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the boundary around this from the salt pan, and I'm just going to add a boundary to the runway just to build a flattened runway, and the rest of the mesh will be as it is in Explain. Okay, let me close down this. Okay, before we continue, let me show you something else. If you can remember correctly, in the config file, we switched on KML export, and there are the KML files. Let's double click on that one. I open it up in Google Earth. And this is how it looks like. A lot of information down here. Something that you can perhaps learn at the end of the day if you want to, but it's not necessary. There's a runway and more or less how this area has been flattened around the runway. Okay, let's close this down. Now I'm going to show you something else. I'm just going to close down this one now, and we open up the Muxp, the bottom file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the Muxp file, this file, to an KML, and I'll show you again how it looks like in Google Earth. Oh no, I can't do that, sorry. Let's select here. There it is. And this is what we're going to use when we do runway profiling. But just have a look here quickly. Now I'm running it again. Opening up the KML, running again. Oh my goodness. Okay. This whole area, that is the area that we're working in. You can increase it if you want to. I'll show you in this examples. There's a runway that's got its own border around it, and there's the border around the salt pan. And if you look here on the left, this is how it looks like, and this is the commands that has been used by Muxp. Muxp created these commands. When we get into the more detailed way of runway profiling, we need to learn the commands, but I'll show you when we get there. Okay, let's close this down. And let's continue with the flattening of the runway. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete the airport boundary. There it goes. And I'm just going to add a boundary around the runway. Give it about, say, another 20 meters to the sides. The runway is 20 meters. So let's add, okay, 20 meters seems to be much. And let's have a look there. Okay, there's a border around the runway only. Control S, Control B, save it, and open up Muxp. Okay, I'm just gonna run Muxp again. I don't want that for now. Create the Muxp file, and it is successful. And then I have to select it again, open. Before I continue, let's open up. Okay, I can just delete those two files. I don't want that for now. If I open it up, you will see the boundary coordinates is much less than when it was for the whole salt pan. So okay, opening up, select it, start Muxp again. There you are. Just have a look at the scenery.ini file. Okay, the entry is still at the bottom. Let's open up explain and see how it looks like now. There you are. Let's get out of the aircraft and have a look around. You will see the salt pan is not that flat anymore, but the runway is completely flat. Let's go down the runway. Let me maximize this. Let's go down the runway. You'll see the runway is flat. Much better. And there's the rest of the scenery. Let's go down a little bit. You can see it's not flat anymore. The salt pan is based on the default explain mesh. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is, in the next part, I'm going to do a profile on this runway. So this part was only about the flattening, a little bit about the scenery packs.ini file and the Apt.dat file. Okay, see you in the next part.